Good morning. In this video, we will be looking at the civil disobedience movement and we'll look into the details of how it unfolded, what were the causes of the civil disobedience movement, and what were the things, the events which took place between the first major movement in the freedom movement and the second movement, that is the non-cooperation movement and the civil disobedience movement. So we have discussed in the earlier classes about the non-cooperation movement and the social groups which took part in the non-cooperation movement. Now we'll go to what happened after non-cooperation movement was called off. So as you remember, in the year 1922 the non-cooperation movement was called off. The main reason for calling off the non-cooperation movement was the Chauri Chaura incident. The Chauri Chaura incident, you might remember, was the burning down of a police chowki in the Chauri Chaura area of Gorakhpur in United Province. United Province is the name of Uttar Pradesh before independence. Before independence, the state of Uttar Pradesh was known as United Province. So in that area, due to this violent incident, the non-cooperation movement was called off. After non-cooperation movement was called off, there was a sort of division in the Congress. This division was not abstract, this division was not very clear, but there was a sense of division within the members, and this division was between the older generations and the young leaders. There was basically two divisions. One was the older generation and one was the younger generation. Now what was the main difference? Firstly, we look at the leaders. The older leaders consisted of leaders like Motilal Nehru and C.R. Das. Motilal Nehru, as you might be aware, you have studied about him in the 9th class. In the Constitution chapter, he gave forward a report of on which our constitution was based. Motilal Nehru, he was the father of Jawaharlal Nehru, the first Prime Minister of India. And the young leaders, they were the leaders which you are very familiar with in the freedom movement: Jawaharlal Nehru, Subhash Chandra Bose, and the Vallabhbhai Patel. These were some of the leaders. Rajendra Prasad, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar also, these were also young leaders at that time. So the main division in the Congress was between the younger leaders and the older leaders. Let's look at what the older leaders wanted. So the older leaders wanted council politics. Now what exactly was council politics? There was a council. What is a council? Council was a group of members, and these group of members would help out in every state. They would help out a governor, just like in nowadays we see chief minister. At that time there used to be a governor of each province or a state. So for example, Madras would have a governor, UP would have a governor, Bengal would have a governor, Bombay would have a governor, and this governor was held by a council of members. Now these council of members were always British. These council plus the governor, they were all British. But in the year 1919, after the ending of First World War, the Government of India Act was passed. The Government of India Act was passed, and in this act there were changes made to this council such that some members of the council could be now Indian. So some members could be Indian from this council. These older leaders, they wanted to take part in council politics. They wanted to become the members in the council, and then they want to raise their issues there. They wanted to raise issues within the council. They wanted to take part in the council politics. This council politics only became a chance after the 1919 Government of India Act. Now it is not important for you to remember what council is and how many members were there in the council and how did they help the governor, but Since Government of India Act 1919 is mentioned in your book, it is important for you to know what it meant. Now, another point which you must remember is that in this council, Indian members were not having a majority. They were not having a majority. Majority of the members were still British. So, for Indians to raise issues, they did not have a majority. So, the older generation of the Congress leaders, they wanted to take part in council politics. But the younger leaders, Jawaharlal Nehru, Subhash Chandra Bose, Vallabhbhai Patel, these leaders wanted a more radical approach. They wanted more movements, more drastic nationwide movements, just like the non-cooperation movement. They were very, very impressed with the non-cooperation movement, and they wanted Congress to take part in non-cooperation movements, just like the non-cooperation movement, where the whole country gets united and they challenge the British head on. They wanted to challenge the British head on. They did not want to become soft. They did not want to take part in council politics. They did not want to take part in council politics. They were not interested in councils. They wanted complete independence. Now, at this time in Indian history, in the 1920s, this complete independence idea was very, very extreme. Not all Indians wanted complete independence. But these young leaders now were starting to think that India should fight for complete independence. Complete independence would be known as Poorn Swaraj. So for the first time, these young leaders, they were not looking for council politics, they were looking for complete independence. They wanted Poorn Swaraj for the country. So this was the major division between the older leaders and the younger leaders. Now, one important question which might come in your exam from this part is the Swaraj Party, the formation of the Swaraj Party. This Swaraj Party was not a party outside the Congress. This party was within the Congress. And this party was formed by the two senior leaders, Motilal Nehru and C.R. Das. So Motilal Nehru and C.R. Das formed the Swaraj Party. Why did they form the Swaraj Party? This party obviously formed within the Congress, so it was not separate from the Congress, it was within the Congress. And why did they form the Swaraj Party? To support that they wanted to take part in council politics. They wanted to take part in council politics, and so they formed the Swaraj Party within the Congress to argue for council politics. They wanted Congress members to fight for elections in the council, and they wanted to raise their issues in the council. But the younger leaders now, they wanted a more radical approach. Now let us look at the causes of the civil disobedience movement. What were the main causes of the civil disobedience movement? What led to the civil disobedience movement? The first main reason would be the Great Depression. Now, the Great Depression is a historical event that took place between 1929 to around 1930s, 1932, let's say. The Great Depression you will study in more detail in the next chapter of yours in history, and we will look into various causes for the Great Depression, what happened during the Great Depression. But for this chapter, it is suffice to know that the Great Depression was an event which took place in USA and Europe. It mainly started in USA and then it affected Europe. Now, it was similar to events taking place today. As we know today, due to COVID-19, the economic progress, the economic development and the economic production of countries is very, very low. At that time also, during the year 1929 to 1932, due to some reasons which we'll get into the next chapter, due to some reasons, USA economy crashed. When USA's economy crashed and Europe's economy, which was linked with USA, it also crashed, the economic productivity of these countries declined. When these economic countries, these economic superpowers, their economy declined, they could not buy products from India. Indian farmers were exporting raw material to Europe and to America. But since they were not able to buy because of low economic development in their countries due to the Great Depression, so the exports declined. And as the exports declined, because there were no buyers, then the agriculture prices also declined. So the prices for goods which were usually exported to these countries were now declining. So the brunt of this was faced by farmers. The farmers were facing a lot of impact due to the Great Depression. The Great Depression hit the farmers the worst. Then the second reason would be Simon Commission. Now, what was Simon Commission? Again, Simon Commission was a commission. Commission meaning they were a group of members, and these group of members, what their function was to look into the Constitution of India, the constitutional framework. What do you mean by constitutional framework? They wanted to look into the laws of the country. They wanted to look into how the country was governed. They were supposedly to take decisions regarding the powers, who will have the power, how many members will be there in the council, how many members should be given to Indians, how many should be the British members. They were looking into all such things. Now the problem with the Simon Commission was that there was no Indian member. There was not a single Indian member in this council. There was not a single Indian member in this council. So the protest from the Indian side, from the Congress, was that how can a commission made up of entirely British people take decisions for so many Indians. So this commission was protested against in the country, throughout the country. So a nationwide satyagraha was announced. It was taking protests were taking part in all the major cities of the country. And when the Simon Commission arrived in India, it was greeted with the famous slogan, "Go back, Simon." They were shown black flags, and the very famous slogan, "Go back, Simon," was used. Now, why is this commission called Simon Commission? This commission is called Simon Commission because its head, the head of this commission, was Sir John Simon. Sir John Simon was the head of this commission. So the commission is always named after the person who is chairing that commission. So John Simon was chairing that commission. So he was known as, this commission would be known as the Simon Commission. So the Simon Commission proved to be the point where a lot of Indians were protesting against the commission being all British and taking decisions for us Indians. Obviously, another very important point which we have discussed earlier also, in Lahore during the protest of the Simon Commission, Lala Lajpat Rai died in a lathi charge incident, and this also created a lot of anger within the Indian public because Lala Lajpat Rai was a very old and distinguished freedom fighter. In between all this, in December 1929, after the Simon Commission protests, we saw that in the Lahore session, Poon Swaraj was passed by the Indian National Congress. Now there are 2-3 important things which you should know here. Number one, every year the Congress would hold a session. This session would be at the end of the year, so it would always be in December. Even till date, even nowadays, if you look into the news, you will find that during the end of every year, during the end in December, the Indian National Congress will hold its session. These sessions will be held in different cities. So it will sometimes be held in Surat, then in Karachi, then in Lahore, then in Pune. It will keep on changing. these sessions will keep on changing. It will never be in a same location for more than 2 years. So if this year it is in Lahore, the next year it will be in Karachi, the next year it will be in Pune, then in Surat. It will keep on changing. Now when you go through your book, you have to remember some important sessions which are mentioned in your book, in which year they took place and why are they important. So the December 1929 Lahore session, which happened in Lahore, was very important. Why? Because for the first time the Congress passed the Poon Swaraj resolution. Passing the Poon Swaraj resolution means that from now on the Congress was fighting for complete independence. For the first time now the Congress wanted complete independence. So in the year 1929 they decided that they will fight for complete independence. This complete independence was to be observed on 26th of January 1930. That means within a few days after this resolution was passed, this day was supposed to be the Independence Day of India. I have told you already during the Constitutional Day celebrations also, and last year when we were discussing the Constitution of India in your 9th class, 26 January gets its root from this date. So 26th of January 1930 was to be the Independence Day, celebrated as Independence Day by Congress. Although during that time it did not get so much attention, but this is the reason why we chose 26 January 1950 as the Republic Day of India, because of this particular date. Every session will have a president, and the president for the Lahore session was Jawaharlal Nehru. So you have to remember which year the session took place, at what location, who was the president, and where what resolution was passed. President, if it is not mentioned, it is not very important to remember the president, but you certainly have to remember the place where the session took place and what resolution was passed and in what year the resolution was passed. So this was the Lahore session in which for the first time the Congress passed the resolution of Poon Swaraj. Now after this, Gandhi took on the movement to start the movement of civil disobedience. So for the first time what he did was he sent 11 demands to the Viceroy. He sent 11 demands to the Viceroy. Now the Viceroy was the head of the British in India. At that time, who was the Viceroy? He was Lord Irwin. Lord is not his name. His name is Irwin. Lord is just what were used for viceroys. Now the 11 demands, these 11 demands which Gandhi put forth to Viceroy had covered all the social groups. So it had some demands which were for industrialists, it had some demands for peasants, it had some demands for women, but the most important demand was the abolition of salt law or the abolition of salt tax. You are aware that for manufacturing salt we had to pay tax to the British, but Gandhi argued that for our country, if in our country we cannot even make our own salt without giving tax to the British, then it is not acceptable. He wanted abolition of salt tax. He wanted Indians to be able to manufacture salt. Now the most important thing about this was, because of the salt law, because of the salt tax, this issue of salt, this connected all the people. Why? Because salt was eaten by everyone and it was essential for everyone. So this issue resonated with all the various social groups. It is obvious that Lord Irwin did not meet these demands. So these demands were not met, and that was expected by the Congress and Gandhi. And as soon as the demands were not met, Gandhi started the Dandi March. Now what was the Dandi March? Dandi March started from Sabarmati Ashram in Ahmedabad. Gandhi, along with 78 of his followers, started marching towards Dandi. Dandi was a village in the coastal area of Gujarat. So it was a coastal area जहाँ पे समुद्र का किनारा लगता था. He started on 11th March with his 78 followers. He marched for 24 days and he reached Dandi on 6th April. And on that day he broke the salt law. But on the way, British were expecting that not many people will join him. But it proved that thousands and thousands of people joined him during the march, and when he reached Dandi, he was accompanied by more than thousands of people, and all of them collectively broke the salt law. This Dandi march started the civil disobedience movement. So it was the beginning of the civil disobedience movement. This movement was largely non-violent, but it was met with brutal repression. More than 1 lakh people were arrested. All the major Congress leaders were also arrested. These included Nehru, Gandhi, Patel. All these leaders were arrested, and many were also killed. Many people were killed in police firing. So the British were repressing this movement very, very brutally. But this movement nevertheless carried on. And after some time, the British had to give in, and the movement was also starting to become violent. So there was a deal signed on 5th March 1931 between Gandhi and Lord Irwin. The civil disobedience movement was called off, and the Gandhi-Irwin Pact was signed in 1931. What did this pact entail? This pact consisted of a deal between Gandhi and Irwin, such that Gandhi would take part in the round table conferences to be held in London, where the future of India was to be decided among various stakeholders. These stakeholders would be, one would be Congress, one would be the Muslim League, one would be the Sikhs, one would be the depressed classes. All these were to come to London, and equally they would take decisions regarding the future of India. So this was the Gandhi-Irwin Pact. The round table conferences held in London, the talks broke down as there were a lot of leaders and no concrete decision could be taken. Civil disobedience movement was again started after the talks broke down, but this time the movement was not very successful and it fizzled out. The movement could not be that successful as the previous case. So the civil disobedience movement got ended with this, and now we will have a look at the various social groups that took part in this civil disobedience movement. Firstly, we'll go to the countryside. In the countryside, the Jats of the Uttar Pradesh and the Patidars of Gujarat, they were both rich land owning farmer communities, one in northern India and one in western India. Both of them participated in large numbers during the civil disobedience movement. They participated in large numbers. Why did they participate? Because they were affected. They were affected by the Great Depression. There was no export, no sale, and they were they had suffered huge losses during the Great Depression. So they took part in the civil disobedience movement in large numbers, and they were very disappointed when it ended. So when it was called off, they were very disappointed, and they did not take part in the civil disobedience movement, which started after the round table conferences. So during the initial civil disobedience movement, the Jats of United Province and the Patidars of Gujarat, they were taking part in the civil disobedience movement in large numbers. The second social group which we look at is the poor peasants. Who were the poor peasants? The poor peasants were mainly the people who owned very less land, or they did not own any land and they were just working in agricultural fields. Now their participation in the civil disobedience movement was very average. What did they want? They wanted low tax. They wanted to reduce the powers of the zamindars. Who were the zamindars? They were the rich landowning farmers. Now the rich landowning farmers, as you have seen before, they were taking part in the protest, and the Congress wanted their support, wanted the support of zamindars. So the relations between the Congress and the poor peasants was not very good. The relations between the Congress and the poor peasants were not very good. Congress wanted to support the zamindars, they wanted to support the rich landowning farmers. So the poor peasants were not very interested in the movements with Congress, but some of them still took part because of the ideal leadership of Gandhi. They were followers of Gandhi, they liked Gandhi. Gandhi was separate from the Congress, so some poor peasants would still take part in the civil disobedience movement, but mostly the peasants were not very keen to take part in the movement because of the Congress's liking of the zamindars. Similarly, in the cities, we look at the industrialists. These were rich industrialists, big industrialists like Birla and Tata. Now, these rich industrialists were big supporters of the civil disobedience movement. Similar reasons to Jats and Patidars. Why? Because the exports were declining, there was very low profit. What did they want from the movement? They wanted import protection. What does this mean? They wanted that there should be no British product, there should be no British products imported, no British products should be imported from the European countries. Why? Because that was cheap, and because of that product their sale was not very high. So if no British products were imported, then their productivity would increase, their profit margins would increase. For this, for uniting the industrialists in India, they formed two very important groups. These two groups you have to remember. The first one was the Indian Industrial and Commercial Congress, and the second one was Federation of the Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industries. So these two were very important. You have to remember the names of these two groupings. After the civil disobedience movement, the industrialists also lost hope, and they were also disappointed that the movement was called off, and they did not take part in the freedom struggle from then on. As we see that the farmers and the peasants will take part in subsequent freedom movements, but the industrialists now would not take part in this movements, any movements further on. The main reason why they did not take part in the movements were because they wanted peace. They were worried about these national movements creating a sense of disruptions in the country. When these movements were going on, a lot of people were protesting, and इस सब की वजह से there were a lot of disruptions. There was not peace in all the areas, and that is why if there was not peace, there was less sale of their products, and they were affected economically. So they were worried about the disruptions, and they wanted peace, and for that they did not support any large scale freedom movements from then on. The working class are our fourth social groups which we look at. The working class consisted of the workers working in these industries. Similar to peasants, Congress was not supporting these working class members much. Why were they not supporting these? Because the Congress support was for the industrialists. The Congress support was for the industrialists. They wanted industrialists to take part in the freedom movement, and for that they were not very supporting the working class, and the working class also did not take much part in the civil disobedience movement. The fifth social group we will look at, and it is a very important social group, that is of women. Civil disobedience movement for the first time in Indian history saw a large participation from women. This was despite the fact that many of the leaders, including Gandhi, thought that the role of women should be to look after their homes, and the Congress was reluctant. Congress was reluctant to allow women to take part in the civil disobedience movement, but despite that fact, there was large participation from women in the civil disobedience movement. So these five social groups, how did they take part in the civil disobedience movement, is very very important for us, and you can read this from your history textbook and get a detailed understanding about this piece of syllabus. In the next class, we will look at the most important social group which proved to be were the Dalits. What were the role of the Dalits in the freedom movement, and where were the Dalits during the civil disobedience movement? Who was their leaders and what did they want? The Dalit issue is very very important in our freedom struggle, so we'll read about it in the next chapter, and we'll then move on to the last part of the chapter, which was the collective belonging. How did we develop the collective belonging? How did the flag help in that? What is the Bharat Mata? And we'll look into that in detail. So this will be covered in the next video. Thank you.